Bom dia, Portugal!
In Portugal, there's a YouTube show full of fun facts you need to know. Carl rings the bell and the members show to the GMP morning show. Featured guests will come and they will blow your mind. The audience will do so in kind. A little vanity mixed with some insanity on the morning show with GMP.
Good morning, Portugal, and I'd like to welcome you to another fantastic day.
Hey, Gumpers.
Hola, bon dia, alegria. Munson here with the Good Morning Portugal show, live stream and podcast. Yay! Yay, just in time, says James, to say ate amanhã. Time to switch from coffee to wine. It is, it's 10 o'clock. Get the wine. Yeah, power's back on. Just in case you didn't know, at around, what would it have been, 20 to 9 this morning, some gentlemen buzzed on the buzzer on the intercom to tell me that the power will be going off for about 30 minutes. And what is it, like an hour and 20 later? They've done it. They fixed it up. We're back in business. And I think with a slightly changed show this one, I can't be here for the whole hour. I'm not sure you can either. But we will see how we get on this morning. Jenny, one of my guests, I think, is behind the scenes. She may have logged on, but drifted away to do something else. Owen's on. Oh, Jenny is there. We'll go to her in just a minute. Owen's on the train, I think, and may join us from public transport. James at the Andsome Brewery may have had to go about his business and back to work, brewing beer in Lourinhã. And Astrid from Expats Portugal, I think, probably gone to work as well, or doing something else in the office. Oh, Owen is with us. So let's bring everybody onto the screen. Give him a nice big round of applause, please. Jenny Lowe, first of all, and Owen on the train. Owen, look at you. Thank you very much, Owen, for joining me.
Good morning.
And good morning to you, Jenny. Thank you for bearing with.
That's okay. I was doing other things.
Excellent. And yeah, Owen, I think you're multitasking as well. Traveling to the capital. Fantastic. So, Jenny, thanks for joining us. I was attracted by, I think, your headline on X, formerly Twitter, about taking responsibility for your health, right? There's, I've been saying this for a little while now. I think we're going to have to be doing that, aren't we? I mean, some are voluntarily doing it and some can get your help to do it. But with the way things are going demographically in society, we're all going to have to be taking greater responsibility for our health, aren't we?
I think we are. And I think just for the kind of the very fact that when we do go towards the modern medical kind of service, which I've had to use a few times in the last few months because both of my children have broken bones. So obviously it should be there for the acute kind of stuff, but we don't always know the amount of options that we might have for a course of treatment or a particular illness or something else. So it's very kind of narrow focused within the modern medical health, service, and they don't always tackle the underlying root cause. So I think just for being able to exercise our own autonomy to do with our health, which has been very important, obviously, over the last few years with the vaccine rollout and everything else, I think it's really important that people become more informed about what options they might have to do with their own health and take control of their own autonomy again. I think there's definitely been a lot of that in the last few years, especially.
You make a very good point. Oh, and Owen might like to jump in on that. I think, a few people have been, what would you say, doing what you're talking about for maybe a decade or two now, but it's been brought into a different kind of focus, hasn't it? And we have a different emphasis now with what's been going on for all sorts of reasons, actually, in the last couple of years, or last few years, 5 years perhaps. And the pressure, if anyone's been in a Portuguese hospital or a hospital anywhere in the world just recently, they're under a great deal of pressure, aren't they? So many more older folks living longer. And isn't that great? and the pressure that's bringing to the health system. And then you go in and as you say, your boys are playing rugby, I think, and that breaking bones and they need to go get sorted out. And anyone who's been in the system will see that it's under great pressure at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah, it definitely is. I mean, I've been into the Caldash hospital twice because both sons have broken bones. And then he had to go to surgery as well. My eldest had to go to surgery. Wow. And everything is very strange. Even because the rugby club had private health insurance, we went through the private system to actually get the surgery done. Even that was a big challenge, just trying to access the system, trying to get approval from insurance, trying to find a surgeon that, even though he's 6'3" and bigger than every single healthcare professional he came into contact with, he's still considered a pediatric. So we had to find a pediatric slot that could get him in, and he actually had to wait for 10 days post his injury to get So and the pressure that they were under in the emergency was enormous. The day that my son broke his hand, because he was skateboarding, and fell and broke his hand. He cracked his hand and knocked out his front tooth. That day, there's loads of kids in there with breaks and accidents, and stuff like that. And then in the adult side was just rammed. I mean, I don't know if anybody has been. It's always like that in emergencies, really. It's not often that you get a quiet period.
Yes, you can't exactly book it, can you, and just walk in?
No, exactly. Exactly. So, but it is the same with, I'm hearing a lot of people finding it difficult to access primary care services as well, like the GP and things like that. So
yes, this is the story. And we can safely say, I think, Carl, you might want to comment on this, Owen, as well. The golden days of just rocking up to the doctors, calling the doctor out, going to hospital, having an operation when you need one, when you want one, and complete trust, I have to add as well, in the medical profession. This has all changed, and quite dramatically so. Did you want to add anything to this, Owen, before we find out a little bit more about Jenny and what her solution is to this challenge? We might have a little bit of a delay with Owen. Oh, we're having a bit of a struggle, mate, connecting with you there. So, Jenny, what is your solution? Well, actually, first of all, who are you, Jenny? I think you may have been on our show briefly before. We talked a lot to Mrs. M, of course, and on the Barefoot broadcast. But you have experience of not only the system we're talking about as a nurse back in the day in the UK, but as well as this new kind of approach, which also isn't very new, is it? So, tell us more about yourself, if you will.
So I've got a nursing background. I started my nursing career when I was 18. Basically, I started training when I was 18, and then I worked in the acute setting. So most of my time in the NHS was in critical care. So I saw like the sickest of sickest people during that time. And then I've been here in Portugal now for, I think it's 13 years in October. So I've been here quite a long time. And I've worked a bit as a private nurse here, sort of providing services to people. So I've done things like dressing PICC lines and doing wound dressings, taking out sutures, giving injections, looking after people post-surgery, things like that here. But then I moved into nurse recruitment, which was trying to find nurses to go and work in the NHS, which had a big kind of focus on education and teaching them to be ready to be able to work in the NHS. Right. And then in 2018, I had my own health challenges, and I realized that I had to look at things in a different perspective. And I was on my knees really in terms of my health. I'd always been, very active and was doing CrossFit competitions and things like that. And then I got to a point, it was actually after an antibiotic injury. I had an injury to an antibiotic called ciprofloxacin. Wow. And I went to like what can only kind of be described as real deep chronic fatigue, where I found it very difficult to function and do very much. But I gradually pulled myself out of that. And in 2018, I studied nutrition, and then I went off and did my integrative health practitioner qualification in 2020. So I've been working as like an integrative health practitioner, health coach during that time too. But quite recently, it was last year, it was August last year, Bo and I created the Barefoot Healers. So Bo is another English woman living here in Portugal, and I actually happened to kind of move next door to her, and then we connected. So Bo's got a big focus in kind of herbalism, earth medicine, energy medicine. She's a Reiki master, and she's also a web designer. So she's managed to put our website together hopefully very beautifully. I like it a lot.
I would say so. I think it's great.
Yeah, so she's coming very much from kind of the spiritual side, which I also come from too. But we've put together our kind of knowledge and experience and what we kind of believe are the pillars for health, really. So we offer health coaching services, Bo does Reiki as well, and we've got some spiritual counselling and some other services in there. But the main thing that we've done is we've launched the Roadmap course. So it was designed for people who have health challenges or just want to kind of get more in touch with their mind, body and soul in terms of healing. And we've also added on extra modules so that people can use it to become a holistic health coach too. So it's all online at the moment, but we've linked in with the lovely Olivia, who's from the Beauty Spot in Foz-do-Relu. It's it's a wellness spa and kind of beauty salon, but the salon was it's changed ownership, so Olivia's taken over it fairly recently. And she's looking to go down the lines of more kind of holistic treatments as well. So we're going to collaborate with her. So our services will also be available via the Beauty Spot, but we are looking to run a physical course. So if there's anybody here in Portugal that wants to do a holistic health course that covers lots of different things, then we're going to be running a physical version of that out of the Beauty Spot from September.
Great. So lots of love. I'm trying to connect with Owen so he can actually speak to us on the phone now, because I'm sure he'll have something to say about this subject. But this is wonderful, Jenny. Really like this. And for anyone thinking or saying or wondering from what you've said, hold on a minute. What's spirituality got to do with health? Could you? I know we've only probably got an hour, but how would you address that? I mean, to me, it's all important. You can't have health without having holistic health. But how do you make that connection? How do you describe that to people?
Well, they're definitely interconnected. And we know that kind of emotional and psychological trauma or physical trauma can impact our kind of spiritual well-being. And when we talk about kind of spirituality, what we are kind of talking about is that connection to some kind of higher existence than us, and encouraging people to get back in touch with how connected we should be to our kind of Mother Earth and everything around us, and how disconnected people have become. And when you're physically sick, it's very hard to achieve your kind of soul purpose. And also when you're not achieving your soul purpose, it can make you physically sick. So we know that everything is interconnected, the mind, the body and the soul or the spirit. They've known this for a very long time. It's been talked about through ancient civilizations. Like you said at the start, it's not new. What we're talking about here isn't new. Yeah. And I know your lovely lady wife, she works a lot with talking about people achieving their soul purpose and why they're here, and the influences of the celestial bodies of when they were born and in transit. And I do think that has a lot to do with it as well. So it's just, I don't think you can have health in one area without tackling all three. So if people are struggling, we know that our emotions and the way that we think and the placebo and the nocebo and all of that is very established in science. It's not woo-woo, although people think it's woo-woo.
Well, it's probably because, isn't it, since the Industrial Revolution and the rational age we've been living in, it has been separated. That's Mrs. M's walked into the studio and said, "Why is she on your show? She's on she does my shows, not your shows." But I saw Jenny online. I had to speak to her. And Owen, have we got you now in the background as well?
You have, Carl. I'm here in the background.
Excellent.
A bit of a delay.
All right, but
morning, Jenny.
Morning, Owen.
Your views as well, Owen, in just a moment. But we've experienced this separation, I think, and as James is saying here, it's all connected: physical, mental, emotional and spiritual holism. And you could argue, couldn't you, that with that separation has come all the ailments. And plus the other thing you mentioned, which I think is very fascinating and very on trend at the moment, is the role that the past and what people have been through plays in their health as well. Unresolved things from the past. And we've lived through that. Part of the industrial age, part of the modern age has been, never mind about all of that and the past. Let's move on. Let's man up and move on. It doesn't matter about what's happened in the past. But those things, it would appear, and more science, if we're still following the science, seems to suggest that those things do have an effect on our lives in here and now. What do you make of that, Jenny?
I definitely, yeah, absolutely. I think that's 100% true. And I do believe that trauma passes down through generations, through our genes, and that you can actually see that. There's evidence now. They know that you can actually see trauma in people's genes that's passed down through generations. And it only takes kind of something to be reactivated for that to contribute to a person's deterioration in health. And I see it quite regularly, not just in my own family, but in people around me, that there does seem to be generational patterns that happen, and that at some point people will get the opportunity to break that kind of cycle or that repeated trauma that happens through family lines and through our DNA. I definitely think that that is true. But the good news is that we have the power to change things. Yay! And this is also very well established in science. You know, these things were taken out of kind of popularity, but now people are looking at them in a very different way through the scientific method of proving that these things work. So people like the Heart Math Institute, Joe Dispenza, lots of different researchers are doing research now, which is proving what ancient civilizations have always believed, and that the way in which they practice medicine actually, you know, did a lot of good. And what we're seeing now is, yes, modern medicine does do good and no doubt saves lives. And, you know, they fixed my son's arm and I'm very grateful for that. Right. But they also do a lot of harm too.
And we can see that, can't we? I mean, whatever you make, and people do obviously have very different and polarized views about the pandemic situation. But what an absolute cluster situation that has been to deliver an industrial comprehensive treatment to so many individuals. It hasn't worked, has it? It's caused all manner of chaos and difficulty, which is traumatic in its own right and has secondary implications. And that's where we're at the moment, it would appear. And so thank goodness you and Bo are doing what you're doing. And I think you're part of I hesitate to use the word army, but you're part of a growing group for power. I don't like to use the word force either, but you're part of a movement, certainly, of people who are thinking there are other ways. There are things that have been forgotten that perhaps can be brought to our attention again that are really helpful. I mean, even if they're not helpful, as some might argue, and the most cynical and skeptical people argue, this is just, you know, whatever, this is just quackery. The modalities you speak of are deeply relaxing, and just as doctors are meant not to do, they don't harm people, do they?
No. And, you know, there's a deep recognition that a healing process takes a long time. It's not something that happens overnight. And it also requires a lot of work from the individual that's wanting to get better. Yeah. And, you know, the whole ethos of the Barefoot Roadmap is like, know thyself to heal thyself. Yes. And we have to really understand ourselves and our own health and understand what's going on within our own bodies. And also the recognition that what works for one person might not work for somebody else. And just trying to find your path that's best for you. That's very much focus. And, you know, when you were saying earlier about with the Industrial Revolution and our disconnect, I've been doing a bit of research recently. For a while, I've been looking at neurasthenia, but in the 1850s, there was a disorder that was it was named neurasthenia, which means like weakness of the muscles. And they recognized very much that people were getting sick because of modern life. And the treatment for that was, for women, it was called a rest cure. And they used to send women off into the countryside. This sounds like bliss to me, to be honest with you. That's great. No, I'll tell you about men in a minute. So the women, they were put on a good nutritious diet with lots of meat and lots of animal fats, quite interestingly, with the whole carnivore movement that's coming. Yeah. And they were given like long periods of rest where they weren't allowed to do very much. And then they would have like periods of balneotherapy and hydrotherapy. And then they'd have like graded exercise back in for this kind of nervous weakness that people had. And the men, interestingly, were sent out to the ranches with an axe to go and to chop wood and to be physical. So the women were being told to rest and the men were being told to be physical, which I think is quite interesting. But how much more disconnected are we now than we were in the 1850s when the Industrial Revolution was kind of, taking hold. And I think we can learn a lot from the way they managed things back then.
Yes.
But we we do the opposite. You have people that are so burnt out that we can't physically do anymore. I think we're almost at the peak. We can't have anything more now. It's just like layer upon layer.
Yes, and that's normal life. It's the water in which all the fish are swimming, saying, "Well, this is fine. It's absolutely fine. It's a bit murky in here, and it's we're swimming in our own waste, but this is just life, But I think you make a very good point there. And to you, Sangeet Khatri, the title of the show is Portugal's new immigration plan discussed. What are they talking about? Things that I prefer talking about, quite frankly, Sangeet. But I do apologise to you. That is the name of the show, and we had a massive delay this morning because of a power cut. But this is very important stuff, I think. Transcendentally important. Immigration policies will come and go, but the timeless wisdom that Jenny's talking about here, I think, is really important, especially in the times we live in. And I'm sure Owen's going to pick up this baton and run with it when we talk to Owen in just a moment. And I will come back to Portugal's new immigration plan. But what's the point of migrating somewhere if you're knackered and ill? The first and foremost thing, right, is to get well in yourself, isn't it, Jenny?
Yeah, and also, people might feel better when they do immigrate or migrate somewhere else, but they also might feel worse, because when I was talking about but neurasthenia also there's a division of neurasthenia, which was renamed neurosis, by the way, by lovely Freud, and kind of made it to be a mental thing, when actually it was like a nervous body system thing that we were just being bombarded with everything. Yeah. But there's also a branch called tropical neurasthenia, which they noted in people that were going to the colonies when they colonized different countries, and the environment was completely different, that they actually got sick. So maybe it does have a bit of a part in about moving countries, because moving countries, you might actually feel better, but actually some people's health might deteriorate when they emigrate because, of the difference in the environment that you're living in.
I agree.
UV exposure, everything.
We see it. We see that happen. And again, the beautiful thing is there's something you can do about it, but only if you know that there is something you can do about it and you're willing to acknowledge that something has changed with your situation, which is all part of the modality or the mindset you're talking about. I could talk to you all day. Thank you for bearing with behind the scenes. And it's so good that we managed to get a chat in at all this morning, Jenny. So thank you so much. Great talking to you. TheBarefootHealers.com. That's how to find out more about what you and Bo are doing. Absolutely love what you're doing. Please come back, join us. We have a Chill Out Tuesday, and maybe one day we'll just reverse all of this kind of industrial revolution stuff, and it'll be one day of we'll have a stress day when people can remember what it was like to be stressed, and it'll be one day a month, and it'll just switch it around completely. And do you remember those days when people just lived on their adrenal glands? Yeah, that was crazy, wasn't it? That's what we did, and now we stopped doing it, which is great. And a lovely Freud. Do you think, on a sort of parting note, do you think Freud was like the Chris Whitty or the Fauci of his time? Might have been, right? Got us into a lot of trouble, I think.
I think some of his work is very valid and it stands kind of firm today, but he definitely took modern psychiatry, down a route that maybe could have been directed in a different way.
Yes, brilliant. Thanks for being here, Jenny, and thanks for doing what you're doing as well. It sounds fantastic. We'll talk to pick it up and run with it with Owen in just a moment. Have a great day. Thanks for being here.
You too. Thanks, Carl.
Cheers,
Bye-bye.
Jenny. All right, bye. Oh, Owen, mate. Sorry to keep you hanging on the telephone.
Not a problem. Just left on Bow at the minute.
Yeah. Bit of commentary.
I'm on the train and not the bus.
Okay. Do you want to?
I'm on the train and not the bus.
Do you want to shout that out really loud, like people do when they're on their mobile? I'm on the train.
It's quite difficult. Well, just going back to what talking with Jenny there, is that I lost my faith in the NHS back in the UK, and I've since then I've turned to more holistic approach to healing myself.
Yep.
It's a lot easier. I have no trust or faith in the pharmaceutical industry. So I tend to have any sort of ailment. So I'm looking for natural remedies to cure that. If I had a headache, I use happy. And yeah, so I will generally find a natural way to try and heal myself rather than go to a doctor and have something pushed onto me. On occasion where I was with the doc when I was in there, and we went to see the doctor, who was an old doctor, and I had a complaint. When I came to the doctor's surgery, I gave the doc my prescription. The doc immediately then wanted to take back in to see the doctor. And when he came back out, he said, "Thank goodness we have done." The doctor's excuse is that the changes of using the prescriptions on pen to paper, you have to do it on.
Oh, mate, you're breaking up. This is a fantastic story. But I think what I'm hearing, the point of it is
So that's...
Go on, mate. Sorry, you were breaking up. I think you must have gone through a tunnel or something during that.
This is so difficult being on the train and trying to do that.
No, you're doing a great job. You're doing a great job.
So the long and the short of it is that, when you have so many occasions where you feel as though you've been failed by the medical profession, I think it's time to go back to using holistic. Well, we should always keep the holistic remedies and approaches. Obviously, in other circumstances, you need that medication. I know for myself, from having 2 heart attacks myself, is that obviously I can't cure myself if I have a heart attack.
Yeah.
However, hospitals are there for a good reason, and that's no disrespect to any doctors and nurses. It's just the experiences that I've had that made me turn away from that.
No, I get it. And this is what Jenny, I think, where she's coming from, is that we're taking more responsibility ourselves. This isn't a blame game. I mean, there are certainly things, it is, let's face it, I think it's called iatrogenics. Third leading cause of death is medicine itself after cancer and heart attacks. And you can fact check that, because I think that's been the case for quite some time now. And people are doing their best. I get that. And there are a few wrong ones who aren't, obviously, who are coming to light just recently. But generally speaking, most people are doing their best. They want to help people. And perhaps we've put too much emphasis on the hospital system and the pharmaceutical medical system. And we've said, look, I want to live my life just how I want to, and I need your help to sort it out. How much do I need to pay you? I think that's going to be changing, isn't it, in the next little while?
Let's hope so. So. I mean, in particular, like you were saying earlier, with all the things that's been going on over the last 4 years, I think, in my opinion, we need a complete overhaul of the pharmaceutical industry and their say in our health.
Yeah, right. Yeah, because they have been quite powerful, haven't they, in people's lives, it would appear. T-Duck saying, a patient cured is a customer lost. Well, there is that. Follow the money, honey.
That's right.
Follow the money, follow the science, and they've ended up in the same place. Owen, thank you so much, mate, for joining us this morning. Have a lovely trip on the train there. It was great to see you for a moment on the beautiful lime green colours of CP, I think. Comboios Portugal. Sounds like you're having a great trip. They need to do a little bit of work on their Wi-Fi, but have a wonderful trip. Bon voyaging, and we'll see you soon, mate.
Take care, mate.
All right, okay. Let's get into that. And we had it was Sangeet Khatri who was joining us to find out exactly this. And let's remove that from the screen. Owen, thank you very much. She's joined us from the train there on the way to the capital. Let's have a look at this news item now that has the title of the show in it. Doors open, but not wide open. This is Portugal presents new immigration plan, and this was in the Portugal Resident just yesterday. And the new legislation, I believe, that's been approved of, let's find out, on Monday of this week. The plan eliminates special rules that acted as fast track for immigrants. Portugal presented a new immigration plan on Monday, which puts an end to the country's manifestation of interest regime. Manifestación de Interesa, which allowed non-EU migrants to move to Portugal without an employment contract and request residency after paying social security for a year. I mean, that was always going to end in tears, wasn't it, after a certain volume? Portugal will not have its doors closed to those who are looking for an opportunity, said Prime Minister Luis Montenegro during the presentation of the new plan. But we cannot go to the other extreme of having our doors wide open. As the PM puts it, we believe we need to regulate immigration to give people dignity. So changes then. We've gone through, since we've been doing the Good Morning Portugal show, and incidentally, I noticed yesterday I've published 1,500 podcasts since we started. And in that time, in those 1,500 podcasts, we've seen the change, haven't we? The change of the atmosphere, the change of the legislation, and how migration is working / not working here in Portugal. Let's get right up to date with this article then. Despite the tougher rules, the plan does not aim to streamline and prioritize the channels for immigrants to enter Portugal. That's in a quote there. For family reunification, young students, qualified professionals, although exactly which qualifications are needed has not been clarified, and nationals of Portuguese-speaking countries, the CPLP. The end of this special regime is only one of 44 measures detailed in the government's new immigration plan. The government has also announced the creation of a Foreigners and Borders Unit. That will be the UEF, another acronym to get used to within Portugal's Public Security Police, the PSP, to monitor the presence of immigrants and set up emergency response centres, and the creation of a mission structure with bunny ears there to settle pending immigration cases. Says the plan, this new unit within PSP will be assigned responsibilities of border control, return control, currently the responsibility of Portugal's Agency for Integration, Migration and Asylum, shortened to IMA, thankfully, and surveillance on national territory. In fact, continues the article, IMA itself is due to be restructured. It's like a Portuguese cafe in it. Could someone shut my studio door for me? Thank you very much. In fact, IMA itself is due to be restructured, with the government removing its authority to instruct and decide on return processes, making the Council for Migration and Asylum autonomous, clarifying the responsibilities for attracting qualified immigrants, human capital in brackets, consolidating the Observatory for Migrations, that's the OM. This doesn't sound like a simplification so far, but bear with, and redefining the locations of IMA offices. IMA's operational capacity is also due to be strengthened with more employees and technical resources, the plan states. So changes are afoot. How long they'll take to be implemented and have an impact, we don't know, of course. This is the way that the government has found to tackle the huge backlog of pending cases, estimated to be at around 400,000, that IMA has been unable to deal with. IMA struggles have been well documented, and the process of dismantling CEF, Portugal's previous border authority, and dividing its responsibilities amongst several other separate authorities has been almost universally recognized as a failure by everyone except the government members who signed off on it at the time, of course. The agency's issues have now only been compounded by the news that around 100 staff members are looking to leave IMA. My goodness. Whether the government's new plan will be able to reverse the agency's fortunes remains to be seen, of course. But it's a start, is it not? Elsewhere, the plan also aims to strengthen the response and processing capacity of the consular posts identified as priorities. That definitely needs to happen, doesn't it? We hear of some rum goings on at some of the consulates, and I can't remember what it's called now. I've said it so many times, I can't remember what they call that, or that third-party agency that processes people's applications. Anyway, that may be in this article, or somebody will tell me in the chat. With the reinforcement of 45 staff members in 15 countries, a list that includes all the countries of the Community of Portuguese Language Countries, as a CPLP. The repeal of Articles 88 and 89 of the Foreigners' Law, which allowed foreign tourists to be legalised in Portugal, will be followed by a review of the general law by Parliament in the coming months, says the plan. However, all applications already submitted will be processed as long as they have been correctly filled in or have more than 1 year of social security deductions. The government get those social security payments made if you want to improve your chances of staying in Portugal. The government is also committed to renewing expiring documents, which are due to expire this month. This is so that people aren't going to get stranded out of the country, and to streamlining the procedures for granting visas and resident permits. I think they're going to get to yes or no quicker, aren't they? Which I think will be a great relief for all concerned, to other Portuguese-speaking citizens. Also mentioned in the plan is the creation of a mission structure with additional human, material and financial resources made possible by extraordinarily high hiring measures. We could hire a few of the people coming in looking for work, which includes officials from the Agency for Integration, Migration and Asylum, IMA, inspectors from the former CEF, and other professionals to be recruited. The mission structure will also be responsible for the expeditious assessment of requests and for stepping up face-to-face service to resolve existing backlogs. Well, there's a laxative afoot here within migration here in Portugal. According to Luís Montenegro, the Prime Minister, the new plan aims to implement the kind of rules that are needed in a country where immigration is growing at back-breaking speed. Oh, yes. And as we've reported before, we've passed that million point. Nearly 1 in 10 people in Portugal are foreigner. 13% of Portugal's workforce, having more than 400,000 people with pending regularization processes, is synonymous with lack of capacity, care, and humanistic approach, said Montenegro, adding that Portugal must be able to provide an answer to people, even if it's a negative one. Yeah, fair enough. The worst thing is living in uncertainty, in unease, the PM said. Well, that's good. I welcome that personally. What do you think? Let me know in the chat. We'll come to the chat in just a moment. The plan, I won't read it all. I'll put the link to it in the chat so that you can see for yourself if you want to. Plan blasted by left and far right, as you might imagine. Bloco de Esquerda. I mean, we can guess what Chega might be saying, but Bloco de Esquerda, Doc's party, believes that the elimination of the manifestation of interest regime will only lead to more illegal immigration. Wow. And the final couple of paragraphs, the plan to tackle queues at Lisbon and Faro airports is also part of the changes, which will come as a great relief to anyone who's recently been stuck or who anticipates that in the two, well, actually, there are 3 airports, aren't there? Porto, well done. You're not mentioned here. Lisbon and Faro airports, things that are afoot, measures are afoot to tackle the queues there. So let me pop the link to that article. I'm keen to know what you're saying in the chat before we go. I'm sure we've got some mindful memery and a God Squad tip of the day. So let's make sure we do that as well. Reducing the verification of the verification of the verification of the required documents could possibly help as well. And I believe that no significant improvement will only occur when there is a massive increase in numbers and training of new processing staff. Yeah, I made a mess of reading that out, but I get the gist there. They need more staff and resources, and that is part of what's being talked about here. Lord Gilchrist is here, and going back to what we were talking about with the Natural Health Service, I think of the UK here, my doctor told me you're not entitled to NHS treatment until you live in a proper home. Wow. So not seen any medical professional in many years now. It's a relief to take my personal healthcare into my own hands. My goodness. And as one of the greatest gurus, SpongeBob SquarePants, says, well, good luck with that regarding overhauling the pharmaceutical corporate giant. Yes. Because they do seem, I mean, this isn't the first time fingers of doubt, suspicion, or even outright accusation have been pointed at the pharmaceutical industry. They always seem to cope fairly well, don't they, with a massive crisis where they've been obviously profiting from people's ill health. The opioid crisis, for example. No one seems to go to jail, do they? They change the names of things and they blame other people and maybe contribute a little bit more to the coffers of the lobbyists and the politicians themselves. Or allegedly. Or am I just being too cynical? The best is when you have a doctor who supports your desire to use natural remedies. Now, there's a good doctor, and they do exist. Well made. A good point, well made there, Nubianet. I've had a few doctors in my life who encouraged me to do that. Very good. Please share their names, among others here. Let's go back to the beginning then of the show this morning, which, yes, I was reporting at 8:38 that my power was about to be cut. Stick a shilling in the meter. It really wasn't that. I promise you, Deagle. I'm not sure if I am right. No, because I've lost the God Squad tip of the day because of the power cuts. So we'll carry those forward to tomorrow, if we may. Their annual God Squad tip of the day, Coach Turner, and let's pick it up where we left off this morning, and we'll do that tomorrow morning when we're joined by Fabrizio and Ian, and also Ali Sheldrake, and we'll be previewing the new copy, the June issue of Snapshot tomorrow morning. So I'll leave it there for this morning. Thank you so much for bearing with. It is wonderful to know that even if I start, I think, what was it, over an hour late, people are still here and happy to chat and connect here on the Good Morning Portugal show. Sangeet, thank you for joining us. I received my D8 visa from the Indian consulate last month and moving to central Portugal last week of June. Well, that's great news. I'm glad to hear that. And we look forward to welcome you as part of our community, as well as to Central Portugal. So take care. Have a great day. And thanks for bearing with. And we will see you tomorrow. All the best. Bye for now. Now then, can I find that coffee jingle? Oh, yes.